Last time, I did a challenge run to kill a level 92 enemy at level 3. In my excitement for the remake coming out soon, I want to show off some of the coolest feats possible. This time, we will be killing a super boss in the desert area at level 7, plus a few extra enemies. The reason this is impressive is not because of how weak we can make ourselves and still win. The answer to that is infinite. This game has no level down mechanic. The reason this video is impressive is because it's a low % run. The only information that needs to be brought up again from last video is that there are 6 different attack elements in this game. You have a resistance stat for each one, and getting that resistance stat to 100 completely stops all damage that you would take. You should also know that this game's combat system is very broken. So how do we even start to attempt something like this? Well, let's ignore killing the enemy and just figure out what the minimum progression needed to fight the enemy is. The super boss is located in the desert area, so is one of the 2 extras, and the other is located in the forest area. We can get to the border of the desert area at level 2, but there is an invisible wall here until we finish chapter 3. So our first limiting factor is the story progress. The minimum level we can finish chapter 3 at is level 6. We are forced to eat some EXP in chapter 1 and 2, and this game has area triggers that give you EXP if you walk into them. In order to not get level 7, we need to walk this very specific path and make this precise jump to avoid all of these area triggers. I want to talk about this area trigger in particular because we need to avoid it 3 times in the most ridiculous ways. At the start of chapter 2, we need to swim through the underside of NLA, climb up the scaffolding, take this elevator, then spend 20 minutes swimming around the entire city. Ridiculous enough already, but then the game tries to force us into it again at the end of chapter 2. Thankfully, there is a glitch called New LA Skip that allows us an alternative way in, skipping 10 measly XP that won't even result in a level up. At the start of chapter 3, we would need to do the 20-minute swim again, but thankfully fast travel opens up. There is then the boss fight of chapter 3. Even we are in the weakest possible state we can be in, it's pretty difficult, but we switch to Alma, and after 15 or so attempts, we finally get it. Upon completing chapter 3, every one of the game's continents opens up. We can now go wherever we want. Let's take out this video's first enemy. Go to the shop, buy a swimsuit, jump into the ocean, and swim. All the way over here in the forest continent, get on this branch, make this precise jump, and then a few tricky jumps after. Then sadly, we need to go through this area trigger. I try my best to find a way around, but it's not possible. Our level increases to 7. We go deeper into the forest, and we start the fight. The swimsuit that we got gives us 100 thermal res, which prevents us from taking any damage. And on top of that, there's a glitch with this exact type of enemy that prevents it from pathfinding properly. So it can only use thermal attacks, and we can win right now. There is one problem though. You see how we're getting launched? If that wasn't happening, we could just AFK this fight. But given that it does, we need to manually play this entire fight, and it's going to take over 100 hours. I did exactly this in my last video. I'm not doing it again. Don't worry, we will still be killing this level 85 at level 7, but we're gonna do some things first. For now, let's move on to the next enemy who we will be killing first try. There's this level 65 enemy that runs around the middle of the desert area. He is quite infamous among new players because of how he will constantly spot them and kill them on sight. He's kind of a bully. You new players in March will experience that firsthand, so we're gonna get revenge on him. We can start the fight right after finishing chapter 3. We'll be forced to pass this area trigger, which levels us up to 7, and even though we can fight him, we can't win right now. So let's figure out how to. All of his attacks are physical with 1 electric attack, so we'll need 100 physical resistance and 100 electrical resistance, which we actually can do, but there is a better strat. We can glitch him into only using his ranged attacks. This is becoming a theme at this point. We can lure him to follow us near this cave, and once we enter the cave, his pathfinding just stops. He will never try to get closer to us, and if we're able to shoot him from far enough away, have 100 physical resistance and a way to passively heal, and we'll be able to AFK him and just win. After chapter 3 finishes, all of the online features open up. This game has an online-only currency that can be used to get any material in the game. You get this when you complete online missions or when players in your lobby complete online missions. We can just AFK online and get all the currency we need, but to get enough in a reasonable amount of time, we'll need to get some help from a friend. There are 2 raid bosses in the game. One is only unlocked after completing chapter 6, but the other can be played at any point, but the problem is that it's not online that often, only appearing when this circle fills up. Thankfully, someone discovered a way to instantly force it to be full server side. Just obtain a negative reward ticket, idiot. Server doesn't know how to handle it, so it fails open and instantly fills the bar. With the online raid bosses, you can break all their appendages and get a crap ton of the currency to buy materials. Best part is you don't even need to finish the fight, which means we won't gain any EXP. We don't have the resources to break his appendages, but our friend does. Small problem though, we need these weird things called blade medals to join our friend's raid boss fight. The only way to get these involves getting EXP. So, are we ruined? Thankfully, this game was coded by the Joker from Batman. There are 5 things that transfer between saves when pressing New Game. All of your settings, your saved avatars, online leaderboard data, these post-game missions used for grinding, but only if you never save and quit, and then one singular permanent thing. The blade metals we need and nothing else. And after about a day and a half of non-stop grinding, we'll have all the materials we could ever want, and we'll still be at level 6. So what can we use these materials for? We can craft augments. Every weapon and armor piece has enhancements that are built into it and slots where you can attach your own enhancements. The good ones require a lot of materials, which we just got. For killing this level 65, we're going to need some physical resistance up and ideally some ranged accuracy ups. The physical resistance up will prevent us from taking damage, and the ranged accuracy will just make things go faster. One problem though, we're missing the last material on this list, and it has a weird icon. What's up with that? These items are called precious resources and can only be gotten from mining. Throughout the world, there are these glowy Assassin's Creed, Breath of the Wild tower things that reveal information on your map. Can you tell this is an open world game? These towers will automatically mine resources for you and money while just playing the game, or in this video, while AFKing. Each tower has its own various resources that it can give you, but they also give you EXP. So we're gonna have to be smart about which ones we get. All the way in the lava area, which is a 40-minute swim by the way, there is exactly one tower in the game that gives us the resources for both the max tier accuracy and resistance augments. The game expects us to pass some area triggers to avoid dying in the lava, but why avoid it? Technically not a glitch, but I don't think the devs had this in mind when designing the party change screen. If you click on change active members and confirm changes, your HP will instantly be filled to full. You can even do this after you die. Doing this every few seconds, we can swim through the lava and avoid every area trigger that wants to give us EXP. We go to the glowy open world tower and we get 100 EXP. It is possible to get 100 physical resistance with only 30 EXP, but I'm not going to be doing it. With all this setup in place, we can now craft all the attribute resistance, accuracy up, and even attack up augments we want. Not relevant to this run, but we should talk about the most important augment in the game, Appendage Crusher. Every single enemy appendage in this game has a hardness value ranging from 5 to -5. The game never tells you about this. The only reason we know about it is because of data miners, and the only reason we know the hardness values of most appendages is due to extensive brute force testing. Almost every single appendage has the default hardness of 0. What Appendage Crusher does is for everyone you have equipped, reduce the hardness by 1. So why care? Despite its name, it actually has nothing to do with breaking appendages. What the hardness value is a completely independent multiplier. With 5 App Crusher augments, all of your damage gets multiplied by 2.5 after the game already applies all of the other multipliers. It is insanely broken, and the best part, it's cheap. Casually, if you're aware they exist, it's easy to craft 5 before chapter 4. Oh, but that's not all. Later in the game, you unlock the passive combat ability Core Crusher. This provides an entirely separate 2.5 times multiplier. Core Crusher in combination with Appendage Crusher is a 6.25 multiplier. If that doesn't sound insane, that takes you from the low 100,000s to the millions. Core Crusher alone is why Ether is the best element in the game, and it gets even more broken. Not only does it multiply your damage, it multiplies your damage cap. Yes. 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 There are technically 18 damage caps in this game, but only 3 are relevant. And you can actually cheat and give yourself more Core Crushers, making the game have over 2,000 damage caps. One of the funniest trolls online is when a new player asks what the damage cap is, you just respond with which one. Just be as unhelpful as possible. Back to preparing for the level 65, now that we have all the augments we need, how do we equip them? Your armor or weapons need to have an empty slot, which none of our gear does, but thankfully our online friend can help. Whenever you kill an enemy and get a piece of gear while online, you have the option to treasure deal it. This allows any player in the lobby to grab it for free. We have our friend grind these enemies at the beginning of the game and treasure deal us any armor with a slot on it. Our friend then also grinds these enemies and treasure deals us any weapons with 3 slots on them. For the level 91 super boss, we will need this exact assault rifle, which will take a few days, but for the level 65, any 3 slots work, and for the level 85, we can actually get away with 2 slots if our rifle has firing range up. We now know how to perfect our gear and can go kill each of the video's enemies one by one. I do want to get one last bit of trivia out there though. This game has an apartment that's kind of its hub. You've seen it a few times throughout this video already, and it's where all the online missions start. You can even show off the enemies you've killed to other players. I want to bring up a few oddities about this place. If you use the apologize emote in certain places, you will break your legs. In this spot, there's a hole in the floor where you can see the ocean, and you can click your camera into this wall to see more of the ocean. And if you use this game's free cam mod, you can see where exactly in the world we are. There's a Blade Tower, which is always in the same position. There is a hole under Primordia where its land goes under sea level. There is a hole in Noctilum for this one cave, and there is a hole in Oblivia where this pit is. Also, using the FreeCam mod, we can go past the world border and see that Xenoblade X is an octagon. Using a cheat to multiply your jump height, you can clip out of bounds in the apartment. You can run around a bit on the ceiling, but if you fall off, you'll clip past the water and void out. Despite it being visible, the water has no collision. In the overworld, there are a few ways to clip out of bounds. Doing so and using one of the holes in the world, you can go under the ocean. There is a water layer, but weirdly there is a ground layer with collision that you can walk on, and even jump back above the water layer. The only thing under the ground layer is death. If you're curious if there's ever any reason to clip out of bounds, there is one. This post-game enemy is usually only accessible on foot, but by clipping, you can fight it with a mech and it makes farming its weapon faster. Now let's go kill a level 85 for real this time. That tower in the lava area, not needed for this enemy. The only thing we need to AFK this level 85 is this tower right here. We eat 15 unnecessary EXP, but it saves my sanity. The site gives the resources needed to craft the weakest tier of firing range up, which is all we need to bypass the launch, knocking us out of range. By increasing our range by 30 in total, we can position ourselves in this corner, which will prevent the launch from moving us, and we can still hit him. And with a swimsuit for the 100 thermal res and an HP rebound on our chest, we can just AFK the entire fight. Well, almost. Those of you who saw the last video will remember we cannot break this type of enemy's feat appendages or we'll die, so we needed to find a way to target that enemy's body. We can't target this level 85's body at the start of the battle, but it's completely safe to break his tail, and if we AFK till that happens, then jump on this rock, we can target his body. Then jump back down into the corner and AFK the entire rest of the fight. For the level 65, the lava tower allows us to craft the highest tier physical resistance up, highest tier ranged accuracy up, and highest tier ranged attack up augments. So now we just go into the cave and AFK the entire fight and just win. But can we do better? This cave gives us 200 EXP, but there is a way around it. When our friend was treasure dealing us armor, they were giving us beam resistant armor for the level 91. But they can also give us physical resistant armor, putting us at 50 physical res. We can then craft 4 electrical resistance and 1 physical resistant augment to have 100 electrical resistance and 75 physical resistance. And if the arm pieces our friend gives us have physical res up, our stat will go to 93. This is not enough to live. But we have unlocked an attack that increases our physical resistance. And if we craft ourselves some secondary cooldown reducer augments, we can infinitely maintain the buff. Wait, secondary cooldown? The hell does that mean? Every attack when fully charged and ready to use will start charging again. This second charge can either apply a 2.5 times damage multiplier that also multiplies our damage cap, yes, again, or it can just allow an immediate reuse. We need to be careful with how we apply physical res up to ourselves though. When reapplying buffs or debuffs, the game just extends the time like you would expect, but the game has a small chance to give you 1 tier higher than what you applied. This is usually a good thing, but in this case, any time we have built up is now lost, and attempting to apply a lower tier buff does absolutely nothing. So in order to maintain our physical resistance and not die, we need to constantly time using it just before it runs out. And we need to do this on top of dealing as much DPS as we can. And if we mess up once over the multiple IRL days this fight would take, we need to start all over. Thankfully, there is another way to avoid this 200 EXP. This cave over here doesn't give any EXP, but it can be finicky to start the fight here. Solvable solution though. And we can even exchange the 100 EXP tower for a 30 EXP tower. Gives us a lower tier of physical res, which is enough, but gives us no accuracy up. We don't need accuracy though. The hit ratio calculation might be the only simple thing about this game's combat system. Take your accuracy stat, subtract the enemy's evasion, slap a % sign on the end, and that's how likely you are to hit the enemy. Any buffs or debuffs are applied directly to the accuracy or evasion stat, and the simple subtraction is run again. The only thing of note here is that both you and the enemy's hit rate cap at 95% and have a minimum of 5%. Your evasion capping at 95% no matter how high it gets is the sole reason that stat is almost useless in this game, but at the same time, always having a 5% chance of being able to hit the enemy no matter what is very useful for this low percent run. So we set up in the finicky cave, and after about 2 IRL months of AFKing, we will win the fight with the minimum amount of EXP possible. Needless to say, I told myself the minimum level was good enough and went with the first method mentioned and just AFK'd him in the regular cave with the accuracy ups. Something funny is that even though we just killed this super high level enemy, there's this level 22 in the cave that if it spots us, will just one-shot us. We can low percent it as well. Grab 5 secondary reducer augments, which will make our attack refill instantly, then use Assault Hammer to just repeatedly hit the enemy over and over and over until you win. Assault Hammer inflicts a topple debuff, which knocks the enemy down and prevents them from moving or attacking or doing anything. And we can low percent every enemy that's in this area this way. Now that the appetizers are out of the way, let's take on the big boy level 91 super boss himself, Hartmut the Calamity. Like I said in that last video, levels don't matter. That also means enemy levels. The game even has an infographic telling you this. There are even even 2 tutorial enemies for it. There's this level 11 in the forest area and this level 13 in the starting area. Online, you can see the KD of each enemy, and this level 13 is objectively the deadliest enemy in the game. It's funny because they're both passive, and it's because players choose to fight them and die. Despite them being low level, they're large enemies, so they have some beefy stats. They're a pretty clever way to teach you to mostly ignore enemy levels. So that level 92 is a regular Militaur with some extra stats, but this level 91 has a completely unique model that is only shared by one other enemy in the game. He has insanely high defense, even being immune to beam damage. Like all super bosses, he is almost immune to all debuffs. Unlike most enemies, his attacks have no cooldown. He spams one after another in a repeating cycle. He is always in an attack animation. Most of his attacks are multi-hits, with one firing 14 bullets, and his attack stat is high enough that it's just one of those strays hits you, you're instantly vaporized. On top of that, when either breaking his fin or getting him to 1/3 HP, he has a second phase where instead of looping 3 attacks, he loops 5 and gets multiple stat buffs. And one of those new attacks can inflict a debuff that completely prevents you from using any attack or buff attached to your ranged weapon. Oh, and after all of that, the devs noticed he was near a pit and thought it'd be funny to give him the strongest launch attack in the game, hoping it would knock people off. He's kind of a beast. There's an attack in this game called GHOSTWALKER! It is the absolute most broken defensive option, giving a completely zero investment way of dodging any attack. It does have its limitations though. One of them is that the buff stops working after 8 hits, so any attack that hits more than 8 times, such as Hartmut's 14 bullet attack, is a counter. If you understand more about Ghostwalker, it is possible to play around this though. Ghostwalker doesn't just give you immunity with its buff, it also gives you immunity during its animation. So if you time it properly, you can eat all 14 bullets and have 8 free hits after for all his other attacks. But then Hartmut counters this again by having no cooldown on his attacks and just spamming them in a cycle. But again, you can counter this by reducing your cooldown on your arts. That then brings us to the second limiting factor of Ghostwalker. Its secondary cooldown gives us a buff 1 tier higher than normal. If you ever activate the secondary cooldown, which you will, the primary cooldown becomes completely useless unless you time it for exactly when the last hit runs out, or if you're in a really bad situation, ignoring the buff and just using its animation to dodge attacks. Very possible to play around, it's still Ghostwalker. It will always be broken, but super bosses like this are the only enemies that even force us to think about this stuff. So how the hell are we gonna beat this thing at level 7? All of his attacks are either beam or ether, so we need 100 resin each. That's right, we're breaking the pattern. We're not limiting him to only range attacks. And on top of that, we're not AFKing. His launch is too powerful and there are no corners that work. We get the beam res from our armor, we craft 4 ether res up, we have a free armor slot to put anything on, but there's nothing useful to use it for. We make sure our chest piece has HP rebound, and then our attack has more requirements. We need accuracy and a lot of it. So much so that we need this exact specific assault rifle, which will take multiple days or lottery winning to get. Imagine Cosmos from Xenoblade 2, but rarer. Some eagle-eyed viewers may notice this rifle is beam attribute and that the Hartmut is immune to beams, so what gives? Well, flame grenade is always thermal, no matter what your weapon attribute is, so it being beam just doesn't matter. Melee attack can also work, but you need this exact knife, and it's way less DPS and requires way more button presses per minute. Also, if you're wondering why range attacks aren't completely invalid due to him spamming a debuff that completely disables range charts in phase 2, that attack is attached to his tail appendage. If you break his tail up before he goes below 1/3 HP, you can never use it. This fight is going to take 5 IRL days of active gameplay to complete. It is actually possible to save 70 EXP on this fight. Instead of getting the 100 EXP lava tower, get this 30 EXP tower. It's just enough ether resistance to live, but no accuracy. As we've established, accuracy is technically not needed. This strat would take multiple IRL years of active gameplay. Hold on. For every single enemy in this video, we have given up on the minimum EXP challenge and just settled for the minimum level. That was fine for the first 2 enemies, as they were just little bonuses to build up the concept we need to take on this enemy. But come on, man. What am I, a Xenoblade 1 or 2 player? Xenoblade X is a game where its core gameplay loop is that you can one-shot every single enemy, no matter how strong, no matter how deadly, no matter how fast. This game has a long history of players setting ridiculous restrictions on themselves and still beating super bosses. We need to beat the enemy with the minimum EXP possible, and not only that, but kill it in one singular hit. If that sounds even slightly unreasonable to you, then maybe you're just bad at video games. We need to throw this 100 EXP tower into the trash. It has not been necessary for any enemy so far, and despite looking so perfect for giving us the max tier resistance augments, max tier accuracy, max tier attack up, max tier secondary cooldown, and it even gives us 3 Endurance for the speed run, and all of that with no other area triggers in the way. But it's a trap designed to lure in those with tank brain rot. All of our builds so far have been incredibly specialized defense-wise to survive the one enemy we want to fight fight and nothing else. If we were to get hit by any of the weaker enemies around, we would be dead instantly. So what if we were to use the same level of specialization, but for attack? I mentioned earlier, like all super bosses, Hartmut is resistant to debuffs. Resistant does not mean immune. The game gives you a way around this with the resistant reducer augment. It's not useful in every build, but in the builds that it is, they are broken. And we can get the second highest tier from a 30 EXP tower. It is literally inside the area tree we are forced to pass through to get the Hartmut. Tetsuya Takahashi is guiding us to this spot. We only have one debuff available to us, but that's all we need. We've already shown it off. It's Topple. Hartmut has made a career out of launching players into the pit, but as a certain count once said, we are going to kill him with his own gimmick. We craft ourselves way too many resistant reducer augments. We don't have any accuracy, but it's only necessary to hit him once. We restart the game until getting that high % chance. We just one-shotted the super boss out of the goddamn sky. This is the Xenoblade X difference. Oh, but I'm not gonna stop here. When the switchboard comes out, we are going to do some things. But for now, I guess doing a low % of the 2 strongest super bosses in the game, and also under that restriction, making a more optimized build than any player in the past 10 years has ever done without the restriction, would be good enough. See you at the end of this month. Did that thing just blow up a planet? You're telling me because one idiot forgot to turn their safety on, all of humanity is now doomed. That thing's gonna eat the entire galaxy. No! Are we all gonna die? I refuse. Do you think God lives in fear out of what he's created?